All right, so EA did the thing they always do. They announced another patch and they dropped the website to show you all the things that they're planning to do in the future. But what I did notice is that it's missing some stuff, man. It's missing stuff like as we expect. It's missing stuff. I don't typically edit these videos because I usually just like to freestyle and freeform and just talk and just like let this stuff out, right? Just air this shit out. But it's getting to a point where like I'm gonna have to start pointing out specific things, and in order to get anything done, we're gonna have to start pointing out specific stuff that severely hamper the way the game is interacted with. And man, I put myself through it yesterday. I even got some gameplay. Like I even recorded some fights. Like I put myself through it. Like I have a hard time doing stuff that I know is gonna be a bad time. So I just have a hard time committing to like putting myself through bullshit. But I did it. I played a few games. I played a few rounds, and my suspicions were confirmed. There's a lot of things that are just happening in the game that just makes no sense to me and just drives me insane. Like I got KO'd by a Ilya Taporia who armored through a rear uppercut, literally timed him, saw him coming. He got in front of me. I knew he was gonna start bobbing and going for hooks, and I timed him with Gaethje and hit him with the rear uppercut, and he just armored through it and hit me with a combination that KO'd me. And I'm like, brother, I literally caught him at the beginning frames of his animation, so I have no understanding as to why it happened. It happened in Fight Now, like, well, in online quick fight. So, I couldn't see like the vulnerability meter, so I couldn't see why the vulnerability didn't trigger, couldn't see why he was able to just tank through the punch, but he just armored through it. He just took it on the chin. So there's a lot of stuff like that. There's always these things, and as I narrow down what's happening and why those things are happening, I'm going to continue to point them out here on this channel. Like when I figure out why that happened, when I'm able to recreate that scenario in practice mode, and then I can actually speak to what's going on systematically in the game. That way I can actually give you information that's clear, because the thing that you can't do is say thing bad on the look, I don't like it. The devs don't hear that. Like they hear you're bad, you don't understand it, that's why you're interacting with it the way you're interacting with it. They go, you're dumb, and essentially that's what they see. They see you and they go, you don't really know what's at play here, so you're just talking off of vibes. But screw the vibes, we about to jump in and show things. I'm going to edit some clips, and then I'm going to talk about the things that I find. All right, first and foremost, they talked about fixing fighter range and all this other crap and reach and stuff like that, but they never specifically said what they're changing about the reach. I'm gonna have to reread the document or reread the website to see what they're changing. But what I know they're not changing is they're not changing this. They're not changing the striking ranges, and they need to, because of that right there. Why is Max Holloway covering that much distance in 24 frames? Why is any fighter covering that much distance in 24 frames? And you could say, oh, maybe Max is just fleet-footed, right? Okay, what about Clay Guida? Why is Clay Guida doing the same thing? Why can Clay Guida come gliding at you from that speed with one strike? I'll tell you what I'm pressing. I hope it doesn't force people to go online and start abusing this against their opponents, but I'm just throwing the calf kick from the maximum amount of step kick range. Maximum amount of step kick range is where you see the character literally have to glide to cover the distance to get there. That's the farthest out you can be for any step kick. And it looks ridiculous coming out of a jab. Coming out of a feint jab, it just looks utterly ridiculous because that step kick range is just too far out. Like it's just too far out. Like it's just way too long. Like you should not be entering into combinations and entering into striking range, flying at your opponent from that far away. I mean, that's just ridiculous. And people use it. Like it's not like some ridiculous thing that I'm just saying. People do that online. Like they do it with the stepping roundhouse kick. They do it with the stepping teep kick. They do it with everything. Like they will fight from that farthest part of the range and come flying at you at full speed, and you're forced to like then react to something that you would never otherwise react to, like somebody moving that fast, like across that sort of distance. Like that's just not real. Like that's just not something you're ever gonna see in a real fight. Like somebody covering that kind of distance with that kind of veracity. You know what I'm saying? That kind of speed and veracity. And like sometimes it looks okay. Like sometimes coming back from that distance looks okay. It never looks okay for the stepping calf kick. It never looks right. That stepping calf kick should not have that kind of range. At best, the stepping calf kick should have the same range that your straights have. Like this range, like if you want to do a moving forward straight punch, it can land from about right there, right? That's the farthest it can land from. The stepping calf kick at best should cover that distance. Maybe give it some forward head evasion to where you can't just be countered by straight punches. Maybe make it to where maybe that's a thing to give it that recourse to use, but to be able to cheese it from that range, not cheese it, let me not use that word, that gets thrown around too much in this community. To be able to abuse it from that distance should not be a thing. Another thing I notice is, why does a standing teep kick take 73 frames to recover? Standing teep kick, 73 frames to recover. At best, you can cancel. Actually, it's more than 73. It comes around. So it wraps around. 73 plus 7 is what it is. So 73 plus 7 is 80. So it's 80 frames in total. You can cut the last like 10 frames off. You can cut it down to 66 frames if you duck your head. But why does the standing teep kick require that many frames when a jumping crane kick to the body only uses that many, right? Only uses 34 frames to recovery. But the stationary teep kick or front kick, depending on what you want to call it, it takes that many frames to recover, which means you can't walk until the end of that. And it kind of lets you start walking before the 9 frames recovers. Like it's like in the last 2 frames to let you walk, but still that's 80 frames is letting you walk at 79 frames. Whereas running forward and throwing that same kick, you're moving again by 36 frames. Make that make sense. Make that make sense. Like there's no excuse for that to be the case. Like there's no excuse. That 40 frames to throw it moving from Narnia, and you're back to moving in 30 frames. But if you were to stand right in front of your opponent and go wham, and they duck it or they sidestep it, you're vulnerable for almost 40 frames. Almost 40 frames more than if you had ran at them. Like just doing this cuts it down by half. Like they got to do better. Like that's not the only time in the game where that's like a thing, right? So like standing head kicks, 60 frames, which probably feels fair because your character has to spin. Running head kicks, wait, hold on. I did the wrong kick. My bad. Running head kicks, 36 frames, same as the running teep kick. Why is the moving forward strike have way less frames? The moving side front strike, way less frames than just pot shotting your opponent. And also just to throw it moving forward, it says 39 frames to contact, but those first like 5 or 6 frames are like masked by the animation. So even though it's 39 frames to contact, the telegraph point is around the same time. So like where the opponent can tell that the kick is going high is around the same time that the kick would be making contact if you were moving. So it's 30 frames. It's 39. It's almost 40 frames, but the 31 frame head kick is just as telegraphed as the 40 frame moving head kick, and it's also in a spot where it doesn't move the character forward. So like unless you get him right at the edge of range and like kind of teleport him a little bit with the warping that happens like right at the edge of the range, then you just miss from like right here. Well, no, he still hit. Let's see, what's the farthest I can miss from? Right there, give or take. Let's see, this is where I miss. So let's get back there. Try to throw a jab to see if I still miss. No, okay, so from that distance, the jab, well, no, the jab still didn't cover the distance. Either way, it's, so like a regular teep kick takes that many frames before you recover. A moving forward teep kick, this many, and you're back to moving, which is why opponents are running at you, throwing ridiculous things and they're just stepping out of range. They're doing this because there's no reason not to. The amount of frames that it should require, it's a moving strike, right? Like it should have different properties than the stationary strike, but not in that direction. Like that's the opposite direction of what you think would be true. A stationary straight should be faster and recover quicker than a moving straight, which moves you forward, but that's not the case. Sure, you can cancel the straight with you can cancel a stationary straight with head movement, but you can't cancel it with movement or blocking until 42 frames. But if you throw the moving straight Well, hold up, let me throw the moving straight. For the moving straight, you're back in action by 30 frames as opposed to another 12 frames for throwing it stationary. That's only under the constraints that you are trying to move after you throw it, right? Like if you're trying to move your head, you can do that. And you can actually break the animation way earlier to move your head, which is fine. But fundamentally, that's a system that's like fundamentally flawed, is that there's so many frames on the things that should be quicker and more effective than the things that are like that have more different properties, right? Like obviously a stationary straight, it should be quicker and should have more stun because your feet are planted, blah blah. But a forward moving strike should be more explosive and more generally powerful and cover more distance. So if power and distance, that's the perks. That's the things it's adding. It's adding more damage and more distance. That's what you would think would be the case. You wouldn't think more damage, more distance, more evasive properties, more generically efficient movement. Like you wouldn't think that it would open up all those different avenues. You would think you'd be more efficient in movement if you're already planted. Like I'm throwing this punch, all I have to do to step back is just take a step back. When you're moving forward, now you have to change directions. That should be harder to do than to just step back, right? So like fundamentally, like that's another like huge problem. We started with the teep kick having 80 frames stationary versus the moving teep only having 36 frames to recover. I mean, I'm saying 80 frames. I mean, from 33 where the point of contact hits all the way around to be the total number, which the total number from start to finish is 67 plus 13. You do the math, like that's utterly ridiculous. Especially comparatively to 45 plus 36 total. Point of contact is 45, frames past that is 36. Point of contact on this thing is 33, the rest is 67 plus 13. So from start to finish is 33, start to kick is 33, recover is 67 plus 13. So it's, 80 plus 33 is 100 frames for a teep kick standing still. That's crazy. So fundamentally, the issue is there's all the frame data needs to be looked at, but specifically in the context of what's going wrong in the online gameplay right now is people using things like forward moving head kicks because they're generally more effective than they should be. Another major sticking point that I notice, and people probably don't care as much about this as I do, best way to put it, is since they moved the body kicks to just like face buttons and move the low kicks to body modifier, there's some animations or some strikes that are still attached to their previous inputs. So like holding body modifier to throw a leg kick, but holding it hard will throw a spinning back kick to the body. Whereas before, that was the case because the body modifier was why you threw the body kick in the first place. So you were holding R2 or LT and pressing kick, and you threw a body kick. And if you held the kick, you threw a spinning kick. It made sense, but now it doesn't, because now that's the body kick without the modifier. And then now you have to go to hold the modifier and throw the spinning back kick. See, that's why I say it's like a problem for me. It's like something I think is dumb, and I don't think we should be having to interact with it like that. But, some people might argue that that's fine. But when you look at the case of things like switch kicks, so now I'm holding the body modifier, I'm pressing the rear leg kick, switch kick on the lead side. Like, why? Why is the lead kick assigned here? Probably because this kick is on the rear foot. No, and that's crazy. So like, okay, it's ass backwards all the way. This is the lead kick. This is holding the body modifier with the lead kick. Sure, you turn and use what is your rear leg, but why are you using your rear leg there when you modify it to the switch kick? That's your lead leg on the opposite button. So LT plus B, lead kick, LT plus is A, rear kick, but A is your lead kick and B is your rear kick. Like, that's backwards. Like, what? Why? I understand that they changed this, but why did they not reassign all the button inputs to match the fact that your legs are like what leg is attached to? That's why the buttons are what they are. Right punch, left leg, right leg. It's not, that's what they are. That's what they're assigned to be. Like, that's the assignments. So to throw a rear kick with your lead foot button is backwards. That needs to be fixed. Like, that has to be changed. I don't know. I don't know why that didn't get tested or why that didn't get looked at when they made the change. Like the first test you do as an integration tester, when the developer puts in the patch notes for the newest build, change made to kick inputs. Now body kicks are done with face buttons and the modifiers assigned to low kicks. The first test you do is you check every other input that would otherwise use that modifier and make sure everything feels accurate. What should be happening is if you're going to throw a body kick with a modifier to throw the spinning kick to the body, it should just be hold the face button, and the kick that should come out when you hold the face button for A should be this one, because this is the kick that you throw normally. So holding the A face button hard should do that. Same thing goes for when you throw the rear kick. When you throw the rear kick to the body, holding the button, the face button longer should throw this kick, because it's on the rear leg. You're throwing this leg, and now all of a sudden you're throwing this. Now, instead of doing it with two separate buttons, actually 3 buttons, but 2 separate face buttons, right? So B to the body, and now it's A to throw the spin kick. Come on, bro. Like, they're talking about developing resources to get rid of the flow state UI. Like, let me put this in perspective for anybody who doesn't know what testing a video game looks like or what dev QA looks like. When a developer designs a function and that function makes it to the title, resources were allocated to that function to get it into the game. If that function doesn't come into the game with a toggle switch, that means the resources were not allocated to creating a toggle switch. So that means developers have to go back into the well, design a toggle switch, which means more resources have to be allocated to it. And when I use the words resources, I mean time, effort, and money. And time, effort, and money is unequivocal. Like, I don't know what those measures will look like, how much money gets dedicated to adding a feature, but my guess is going into that same feature and making an unexpected change to it is probably more expensive than you think it is. And that sort of community change that they're making is going to cost you somewhere else. It's going to come out of the budget somewhere else. There's only so much money going in and out of anything at any given moment. So when a developer has to stop whatever else they had planned for the patches and now put something else into the patch, because they made it, to be fair, they made a bad choice by putting flow state in the game. They made a bad choice by giving a comeback mechanic to a simulation fighting game. They made a terrible choice. They also made a bad choice by giving it a visual representation on screen. I mean, sure, EA MMA had like when you hit a health event, the screen went blue. It had a visual cue for the health event, and it was very it was hit or miss with the community when the game actually came out, right? They never gave it a toggle. They just kept working on the game the way they were going to work on it anyway. They were never like, people probably hate this, let's change it, because Undisputed didn't have a cue like that. Undisputed only had visual change when fighters were completely on the ground. I think it was on Undisputed 10. It kind of went grayscale, a sepia filter work was applied, and people didn't complain about it because it wasn't, it wasn't in today's generation where everybody cries about like the menial thing, but the big problem is just like right there on the surface. Guys are throwing a comeback mechanic in a simulation fighting game, but the thing we care about is that the screen turned gray when you did it. That's just the way our brains are wired these days. But allocation of resources and development cycles of these AAA video games is not as simple as some dev coming in to work on Saturday to make a change. They have to plan around it, then they have to test around it. How I talked about integration testing. When you add a feature or you make a change to a feature, someone's job is to go behind you and make sure that everything checks out. So they add that feature for that toggle switch for flow state being disabled, right? If it's for online and quick fight only. So if that's the case, right? If let's say that's the case. I don't know that that's the case, but let's say that that's the case. Say you toggle that switch and then you go to play an online career fight and somebody pops flow state and the screen turns gray. That's a bug. That means someone was supposed to test to make sure that didn't happen in modes that it shouldn't have happened in, which requires resources. It also requires someone to know that they need to go to those other screens to test it. It takes someone with skill to go to those areas and say, this needs to be tested because the toggle says it's only going to affect these 2 places, but if it's affecting every place, then it's wrong, right? And let's just say through that same testing process, they go to the career mode, and it's not supposed to be disabled in there, but it's disabled there. But let's just say you're playing 10 fights into your career, and it was enabled. It should not be disabled. It should be showing the visuals, right? We're under the pretense that it only affects online ranked mode and fight now. That's the pretense we're operating under, but that may not be the case of what they described. Don't use my words, don't twist them. I'm just saying, if that's what was designed, then that means someone has to test to make sure that that's true consistently across the title. And that requires resources, that requires individuals that know to test that, and that requires test processes to find that. And then if it does happen, you have to allocate more resources to fixing it. And it's not just go here, toggle a button, it doesn't happen anymore. All of that requires money. And because they're doing that, you're gonna feel it on the back end, which is why I'm putting out this video now, to try to get things that need to be adjusted talked about as soon as possible, because these things should not be the case. They've been the case since UFC 2. Since UFC 3. Your framework has been as bad as it has been since UFC 3. You just didn't know it because you couldn't see it. You didn't know that there was 73 frame recovery teep kick in the game, whereas everything else in the game recovers faster than that. Like, I think the spinning head kick, hold up, do I have a spinning head kick? 50 frames to recover. Stationary, 50 frames to recover, with evasion on the beginning of it. So evasion up until after the kick makes contact. So even if you slip the kick, even if you like step out of range and then you try to walk in the range and counter, like if he was to try to do this at the end of that kick animation, he would miss me still. He's coming in. I can't time it with the strike recording, so it's probably pointless to fight with that fight, but not the point, right? Spinning head kick, 50 frames, stationary teep, 70, 80 frames to recover. It does not require that much effort. And then when you think about something like backdashing, right? The backdash is 46 frames. The minor backdash is 18 frames, contact, like where the evasion expires, but 24 frames in total. This one's 46 frames before, like 46 frames to whatever it's identifying as the contact point. But the evasion doesn't carry all the way to the contact. So if someone were to chase you and time you correctly, they'll hit you right before the end of the animation, right before you can change directions from the animation, and you won't be evasive. So the whole purpose of the animation is pointless. But sidestep, the evasion carries all the way to the end. Now let's see, forward step has no evasion at all because you're literally stepping into range. This one has evasion. The micro hop has evasion until the contact point in all directions, not throughout the whole animation, but just until what it identifies as the contact point, which is probably till when you can strike again. So that's when you can throw another strike. Past that little contact line is when you can strike. So with this one, you can't strike until that hits that 48 part. See, I was spamming. That's why I keep my controller close to the mic so you can hear when I spam. So like you do the major hop, you can't strike until the 46 frame. You do the major hop to the side, you can break that contact at 36, but not before it. But you're evasive until you break it, going that way, but not this way. Like, that's something that needs to be fixed. Like, if this is the way it works consistently in every other direction that same principle is applied to, then it should work that way consistently throughout the entire title. This lunge requires evasion all the way to the 46th frame. Stuff like this has to be tested and then pointed out and saying it's inconsistent from the rest of the functionality here, is that it doesn't apply there where it should. Okay, simple. It's just like simple stuff. On top of the fact that 46 frame evasion, this right here doesn't even get out of the way of moving body kicks. It's 46 frames. A moving forward body kick, like the kicks that people are spamming, like the 33 frame moving forward body kick will track you if you try to avoid it with this movement. It doesn't even get you out of the way of that. And even when it does trigger the I'm out of the way animation, your character still takes damage because it doesn't actually get you far enough away. It's mitigated through like the processes of like having a whole bunch of code on top of it, but this should not be the case. Like, you should not be still getting tracked down by a body kick because it's just not, your evasive tools are not equivocal to the offensive like action. Put your feet down, man. Feet down, bum. Look at that. Like, you try to backdash it, you can't. Because for one, it's covering too much distance and your tools are not equivocal. You have a better chance of waiting till the kick comes out and then sidestepping, but you still take a little touch of damage. And then in a fight situation where you have low body health, that might still cause a knockdown. You know, like, it's just little things like that. It's like, and somebody has to point this stuff out early enough to where it gets adjusted, because if it doesn't get adjusted, then the game will just be the way it is. And that'd be on us, that'd be on the players. I mean, it's been on us this whole time. Like, it's the earnest has been on the player to call the devs hands and say, look, bro, like, this stuff's got to change, dog. Like, this stuff is not correct. Like, this is inaccurate at best. You see, normally with strikes, when it hits the blue set of frames, that's normally with anything, when it hits the blue frames, that's when you can strike again. But with the head kicks, it's not the case. Like, the head kicks, the point of contact does not change past the point of contact what you're capable of doing. But with the body kick, though, is it the same with the body kick? Anything that doesn't combo, and I guess technically the blue frames kind of like equate to comboing. Like, that's where a strike that could combo with a movement or with a different strike will trigger, right? So like, if you throw a head kick, is it the lead head kick that can throw a straight punch, or can Max not throw straight punches out of lead head kicks? Or only on contact? On whiff he can't. Weird. I don't know, maybe my stamina's too low. I don't know. Either way, I wanted to point out those things. Do what you will. Share it wherever you can. Get it as far out as you can. It's not about me. It's not about me. It's about getting this game fixed so that we all have a good time and that the game is fun, fair, and emulates reality in a way that makes practical sense.